to talk to you guys today about some things that normally don't go together. Animal policy and conservatives, right? You've never heard those two in the same sentence, I'm sure, unless somebody was speaking partly upon animal policy. So today, I'm talking to you about how together we can actually solve the nation's bad spending habits. What comes to mind when you think about animal policy? You probably first envision this picture, or maybe you think about this guy, or maybe a group like this one. But I'm here to tell you that as former staff of the fabulous NRCC Chairman, Congressman Pete Sessions, and former Energy and Commerce Committee staff under Joe Barton, we can actually work together, remove the liberal stereotype from animal policy, and actually notice that several animal welfare issues would solve our nation's debt problem and actually lower taxes. This is a map which represents the Senate and its voting habits. So you take a look, you can see the density of Senate members voting pro-animal. The darker states represent those senators that vote pro-animal more than the ones in the lighter part of the coloring scheme. So notice the density in the Midwest and Southeast regions of this map. Now look at the House version. You can notice that the Midwest and Southeast regions of this map are quite heavy. This is a regional map which combines the two, showing that Midwest and Southeast regions vote pro-animal 53 or 42% of the time, which is almost about half of the time you see conservatives voting pro-animal policy. So what does all this mumbo-jumbo about animal policy mean to the center-right coalition? If you look back at a presidential election map from 2008, states that stayed red and held strong to conservative values when everyone else was changing vastly were in those same regions, the Midwest and Southeast regions of the country, voting 53 and 42% of the time pro-animal, according to the Humane Society's legislative fund. So what that means is members of Congress that need to be courted are actually pro-animal, and when faced with sensible legislation, choose to vote to make stronger humane measures for animal policy. So, in essence, animal policy doesn't have to look like this, and it can start to look more like this. So the 111th Congress has formed an Animal Protection Caucus, and it boasts 84 members. You guys might recognize a few of these faces, and Ellie particularly. I think you were with Eliana just this morning, who is a fantastic member of the Animal Protection Caucus. A few more conservative faces on that caucus, a few more, and these, and also these. But the point is that these are faces that you guys work with, that you see, that you know, that you hear about. So animal policy doesn't have to be something that you're scared of. It can be something that we can work together on. I was speaking with someone earlier in the event this evening about how she watches the SPCA commercials and it tugs at her heartstrings on TV at night and doesn't know whether or not to give to that organization and doesn't know where those dollars are going and what campaigns they're funding. Humane Society's legislative fund commonly supports conservative members of Congress, so it's something that we shouldn't discount. Let's move on to a couple of policies that you guys might like. First is the Pet Safety and Protection Act. The bill has 103 co-sponsors. It's a bill to ban random source Class B laboratory animal dealers. What that means is that there are 90,000 animals currently in laboratories in research today. Animal Welfare Institute is not against animal testing, by the way. But 86,000 of those come from Class A dealers, while only 32% of them come from Class B random source dealers. If this bill were to pass, it would save taxpayers $250 million per year. So now that I have you listening, USDA licensed Class B dealers, also known as random source dealers, are notorious for their failure to comply with the Animal Welfare Act, both in how they keep the animals and the illegal means by which they gather Class B animals. So what that means is that while Class A dealers who are responsible and raise and breed animals for that purpose are only regulated once a year, Class B dealers have to be regulated quarterly because of their criminal nature. which cost the American taxpayer $250 million to fund that through the USDA. 7 of the remaining 9 Class B dealers are currently under investigation, only raising the number that I just quoted you. In the 1960s, you can see in this old black and white picture, Congress realized the drain on the economy that Class B dealers were having, and they actually passed the Animal Welfare Act to solve the problem. But we still see a few Class B dealers in the country today, and we're still battling, wasting government funds, precious taxpayer dollars, raising your taxes for something that's completely useless. So, well, since the 1960s, it works out to be about $11 billion that taxpayers have paid in to fund Class B dealers, which is ridiculous. So my proposal to you is, doesn't it just make sense to let the free market thrive with Class A dealers and rid this drain on the economy while helping animal welfare policy?
What's the difference between an A and a B?
So a Class A dealer raises and breeds animals specifically for that purpose. They also keep medical records and they know the lineage of that animal. So say you're trying to solve cancer, you would want to know the medical history of that animal. Class B dealers gather animals from free to good home ads, they'll get them from pounds, and all you need is a bill of sale. So I could gather all of your dogs and then sell them to a research facility and just say, yeah, these are my dogs, I have this bill of sale.
So who doesn't want all these animals bred? Is that
That's not the problem. What we see is just these rogue Class B dealers that keep coming back up, continually draining taxpayer dollars. Let me talk about this last bill, Prevention of Equine Cruelty Act. It has 184 bipartisan co-sponsors. In the Bush administration, this bill was championed by Congressman Ed Whitfield. The bill would end the inhumane slaughter of horses for human consumption. So 100,000 American horses a year are being slaughtered for human consumption. This basically rids our economy of $500 million in profit per year. So if you look at the graphic on the screen, you'll see a horse. On one side we have slaughter, which gains a one-time profit in foreign markets because horses are not slaughtered in this country. They're sent to Canada and Mexico for slaughter. So there's a one-time profit to a killer buyer. If you rehome that same horse, instead of sending a 10-year-old healthy horse to slaughter, you rehome it here in the United States, and you have reoccurring jobs for the care of the horse, the feed of the animals, the medical care, supplies, tax, events, revenue, and whatnot. So the Humane Society actually did an economic breakdown, which means that we're losing $500 million per year by sending a healthy horse, because a meat market doesn't want an old sick horse, which the opposition will try to tell you that they're taking old sick horses that don't have anywhere to go into slaughter. But these are healthy, viable meat horses that can be rehomed, and they're ridding our economy of that money. So that's what this bill does, and over the course of 5 years, we've estimated that we've lost about $2.5 billion in revenue in the U.S. And the thing I didn't know when I was growing up riding horses in rodeo, I sold my horse back to a ranch, thinking that it was going to be rehomed and some other little girl would use it as her play day pony or put it through events. The fact is, it could have gone to a slaughter auction. It could have gone to any auction anywhere across the United States, and some killer buyer picked it off instead of it being rehomed then. So if you want to get involved, just remember to promote animal policy agenda, and that it is possibly both conservative and pro-animal policy. If you want to write your congressman, we have a great little tool online called compassionindex.org, which rates congressmen on their votes. You can also send letters through that site. Our website is AWI Online, and my contact information is below. Yes?
Christine, just if we were to shut down the Class B animal dealers, what happens to those animals?
They stay where they were going to. So if they're in shelters, then they would be rehomed then by responsible homes.
These outlets for horses that are being used for human consumption.
They still eat horse in Europe.
In Europe, in France, Belgium, Japan, and Germany. Any horse in this country dewormed or given show drugs. Any dewormer has toxic substances in it, which are banned by the FDA for human consumption. So they're also getting toxic meat, which is quite scary. Thanks for having me.